March 12, 2015, the then UK Home Secretary, Theresa May, succumbed to immense public pressure and established a public inquiry into undercover policing. One of the last straws to force the Home Secretary's hand was the revelation that the mother of Stephen Lawrence, who was murdered in a racially motivated attack, had her privileged legal communications spied upon by the police. Sir Christopher Pitchford, a senior English judge, was appointed to lead the inquiry. Campaigners complain that the police have yet to provide the participants with any disclosure whatsoever on their undercover operations. This is despite 2 years having passed since the Pitchford Inquiry was set up. Undercover police have been found to have infiltrated environmental and social justice organizations, acted as agents provocateurs, and developed long-term relationships with activists, and in some cases even fathered children, all while their true identities as undercover police officers were kept secret. On April 5th, 2017, a hearing was scheduled at the High Court at the Royal Courts of Justice for Lord Pitchford to hear arguments from the police, who are requesting an additional 6 months for further risk assessments before considering revealing the names of officers formerly employed by the Special Demonstration Squad, as it was then known. Victims of police surveillance and infiltration, as well as their supporters, came to the Royal Courts of Justice in the morning to attend the hearing, but also to demonstrate and demand the immediate release of the cover names used by political undercover police officers, the names of the groups spied upon, the personal files held on those spied upon, and fair representation at the inquiry. At present, around 200 victims are forced to share one legal team in court, while the police and state are represented by 5 separate legal teams.
And I'm here today because I'm a part of one of the groups that is a core participant in the Pitchford Public Inquiry. What core participant means is the inquiry has recognised us as having some useful contribution to make to the inquiry's success. So it's different from just being a witness in some way that we have a unique insight into the issues around undercover policing because we've been targeted, and that we can bring that to make sure that this inquiry is able to look into what's happened over the last 48 years.
I'm Evelyn Lubbers. I'm with the Undercover Research Group. That is a network of activists who are engaged in investigating suspicions into probable undercovers, and we've been involved in exposing quite a few of the undercovers that I know now.
I'm one of the core participants in the Pitchford Inquiry because I was one of the people spied on by the undercover cop Mark Kennedy.
My name's Paul Gravett. I'm a core participant in the Undercover Inquiry. I'm here today because we're looking for an end to the police's delaying tactics, obstructing, slowing it down. So we want disclosure of all cover names used by the police spies. We want the names of all the groups that they spied on, because there were over 400 of them. And we also want the documents, the files that the police have on us.
Well, we have been giving advice to squatters and other homeless people for the last 40 years, and obviously been very involved in the squatting movement, particularly in London, but yeah, all over the country.
We're just here to support our comrades who were victims of blacklisting and undercover police surveillance and infiltration. People have had their lives ruined.
Do you know anyone who's been affected?
Dave Swift over there, mates of mine I work with.
Hello, my name's Dave Smith and I'm a core participant in the Pitchford Inquiry into undercover policing. I was spied on by a number of undercover police officers because of my trade union activities on building sites in London. I'm a co-author with Phil Chamberlain of a book called Blacklisted, which is published by New Internationalist, and it exposes the role of multinational construction companies spying on trade union members, and also the links with the police spying on trade union members. The reason we're here today is because it's been 3 years since Pitchford started, and in those 3 years there hasn't been a single witness has given evidence, and our lawyers haven't been given a single document or a piece of documentary evidence by the Metropolitan Police. Instead, what's actually happening is the Metropolitan Police are shredding evidence that's intended for the inquiry. And we're here today to say Pitchford needs to grab hold of the police and stop this turning into an establishment whitewash. A particular concern of the trade unions is that Pitchford has suggested that because he's so far behind, he could restrict the inquiry just to the operations of the Special Demonstration Squad and the actual activities of the undercover police officers. But what we're interested in just as much is what the British state did with the intelligence afterwards. It's not so much the fact that they infiltrated the trade unions, it's the fact that they also then supplied the information to big business that meant our members couldn't get jobs and were out of work. That's the human rights conspiracy we're interested in looking at as well.
I guess they do that too, but we do know the police has said that they've infiltrated like over 1,000 groups since '68, and we also know that they did that they supposedly did that to investigate domestic extremism, but that wasn't defined. So whatever this very secret unit thought was domestic extremism, they would investigate. They say they've reorganized the units and that there's now a better control, but in fact we don't know whether it's still happening or not. The most recent active undercover that we exposed was Mark Kennedy, and he was active until 2010, so that's relatively recent. And we haven't uncovered anyone since, but that doesn't tell you that it doesn't happen. It ranges from unions to climate groups to the peace movement, anti-apartheid groups, and it started with the anti-Vietnam demonstrations back in '68.
So essentially, this inquiry was meant to be about justice. It was meant to be about finding out what abuses have been carried out by the police, by undercover police, and trying to do something to right those wrongs and get accountability for the people who are affected. And instead, this has been just one huge delay from the police side of things. They continue to throw blocks in the way of the progress in the inquiry, refusing to release information, just dragging their feet over every small procedural point. So we've got to this point where it's meant to be halfway through the inquiry, and at this stage we don't know anything more about police spies than we did before we started. So we're here today to call for the police to stop dragging their feet and for the inquiry to put its foot down and demand the information that we need from the police.
Well, there's a hearing today. It's been 2 years since the inquiry started, and there's a hearing today which I think is critical, because we've reached a stage where there's been constant delay by the police, and it's been about the issue of anonymity for the undercover officers, and they've argued that the reason why they need to go in and examine at great length whether they release the cover names of their officers is about the risk to them. And what we said is there's been 13 names released because of the work that's been done by activists so far. None of those people has at any point been at any risk. They are massively overplaying the risk and trying to drag this process out for as long as they can, because what they're hoping to do is to dishearten people, make people more disillusioned, encourage people to step away from the inquiry, maybe even to get the inquiry to collapse. And today they've asked again for another 6 months to look at the issue around risk assessments. And what we're saying is they've had enough time now.
We're here and we're going in to court today because we don't actually know if we were infiltrated. I don't know if I was. I'm a core participant, been made a core participant myself, as well as the organisation, which implies that somebody knows something about us and about us being infiltrated or my life being infiltrated. But until they reveal at least the cover names of all of the undercover cops, then we have no idea. So for a year now we've been core participants with no actual way of knowing why we're core participants or how to participate.
We as core participants, there's around 200 of us, we're just people who have been affected by this issue. We have no money or resources or time to put into this other than our own. And on the other side, you have the police with their well-funded team of lawyers doing everything they can to throw obstacles in the way of the inquiry. The inquiry has given us a small amount of legal support, but nowhere near enough to genuinely represent 200 people, all with different stories of abuse by spy cops. So one of the other things we're calling for is to even up that balance and actually allow the core participants like us, who don't have the power of the state or the police behind them, to actually have the resources to properly represent ourselves.
This is Mohamed Elmaazi for the Real News Network at the Royal Courts of Justice in London.